Hi everyone, and welcome to our roundup of 2022 digital marketing trends. This month's series had just been filmed by myself. I'm Claire Danials, CEO at Trio Media.
I'm Manni Singh, CEO of Bobble Digital.
As Anush was taking a break for the holidays. So we hope you found the content that we covered so far for our 2022 trends really useful. And what we wanted to do in today's episode was just recap on touching on some of the key points from those trends and I guess some top tips to get started. So I'll jump straight in with one of mine. I mentioned in my trends episode about we're seeing ongoing automation of Google and Google taking more control on search of both organic and paid listings. So what that means, we're seeing a lot now, Google is deciding to generate its own meta titles and descriptions, for example, when it comes to organic search listings for your website. So whilst that was once something that could be completely manipulated around your keywords, Google are actually taking more control of that. And whilst I don't think that's the last we'll see of that, and, that's now a standard practice, but I think the key point here more is actually over the course of the year, how much more control Google is going to take of certain elements in search. And something that we've seen recently, so on the paid side of Google, on Google Ads, for a long time, these recommendations have been creeping in. And actually for Google partners such as Trio and Bobble, we have to adhere by a certain amount of recommendations that Google gives to be able to keep our partner status, which at the time when that came out, a lot of people kicked off about because it was potentially not acting in the best interest of the client or the business, but was actually acting in the best interest of Google. And what we've seen now on beta in Google Ads is auto apply of recommendations as well. So again, just showing how much control Google want to take over the search side of things, whether it's organic and paid. So that for me is a watch this space, watch out, make sure you're following the Google blogs, but also any content from Trio and from Bobble, because we'll certainly be hot on top of a lot of this. And as we see more changes from Google coming in 2022, we'll make sure that we're covering that content for you. So that was the kind of first thing that I wanted to cover off. And I will recap some of my other topics, but I thought I'd come over to you, Manni. I mean, I know you're in the same boat with being affected by Google. Thought I'd see what you had to say.
Yeah, definitely. Just on that, we already know in June they're going to get rid of expanded text ads. And again, that takes away more control in terms of from you as a business in terms of how you want your messages to come across, because, basically Google is saying, give us a list of headlines and descriptions and we'll tell you what's best. And it's not necessarily the case, because we have had in some instances where we have tested we've been running responsive search ads, and clients have done a bit of a search and they've seen the ad come up and they're like, where did this headline and this description come from? It doesn't really go with that. Why is that being run? And we have to obviously check all that expanded text. I was like, no, it's not part of that. It's part of this element. There will be a functionality to pin certain headlines and descriptions, which you can do right now within Google. But yes, the automation element is becoming very, very, very frustrating from an agency perspective. And it's something that businesses need to be extremely aware of. And the constant calls from Google as well, from what they call their Google account managers, but they're not. This is where, as part of one of my key takeaways, is it's all about your data analysis that you do within the platform. It's what's really going to stand out in terms of stand agencies out in particular. And, the best performing companies in this element is within Google is how the level of data analysis that you do outside of the platform, combining Google Analytics, your internal data and customers, and understanding, what kind of messaging and what kind of products and keywords you do, but also optimizing your website extremely well from a technical SEO perspective so that the user journey is fluent throughout. Different elements are going to have to take a key role and a key step to improve your Google Ads performance moving forward. And that automation is only going to continue to get more automated by Google. It's not something they're going to stop. So over the next 2-3 years, it's going to be very, very data focused in terms of how you make changes and how you implement changes within Google Ads and how they do that.
And it's interesting one, isn't it? Because it's kind of framed as being it's easier, but actually it's making the jobs of people like us a lot harder, because we're having to change the way we would have done things that actually generated results really well, and relearn a process that is much more about Google and Google making the most money and adhering to the Google algorithms. So for a lot of people, if you're doing your Google ads or your SEO yourself, or you work with an agency, I guess go easy because there's a lot of changes from Google, and they often are covered up as being made for ease of use, but the only reason Google is ever going to change things is to benefit themselves, unfortunately. So, but that's the boat that we're in, and we're all going to play along with their game.
Generally, just to add to that, it's the traditional industries and sectors that will be fine. It's the more niche clients that we have where we see the biggest impact, and more than anything else. Specifically, clients that are within a specific niche sector where you wouldn't expect it to be the norm. So, like, we've got clients within finance, but around like early inheritance loans and elements like that. Now, that's not an everyday product or consumer element that companies look for with like your legal firms or your everyday household appliances. These are the ones that unfortunately by this level of automation, it doesn't really work for them, because Google will never understand their strategy or their defined audience to a level where these automations will make an impact, and that's why it's important to do the data analysis.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And we're also seeing clients affected in the financial industry, because there's a lot of regulations around them having to, like for us, it's an investment company. So having to say that, their money is at risk and returns aren't guaranteed. In a normal text ad, you could make sure you said that in every single ad, whereas in the responsive ads, it's an element of it. And if Google's not pulling it through, Google is then making its own ads. It can't serve them. So people who traditionally could perform really well on PPC, we are seeing them being affected. So yeah, I think it's definitely one to keep our eye on in 2022. Another of my points that I mentioned about was audio marketing, and obviously made the point that podcasting, this is audio marketing, and I do think it's here to stay. I touched upon the integration of Shopify and Spotify, and one of my ideas was about brands looking at creating a playlist on Spotify that could then link to their Shopify products. We have looked into this further since then, and currently you need to be an artist on Spotify to be able to do the Shopify integration and sell your services. So it is very much currently led for the music industry. However, if you are considering podcasting or any type of audio marketing, then you could look at becoming an artist on Spotify. And yes, if you then have the added bonus of having products to sell that you sell via Shopify, then that's a potential interesting integration. And my God, was that hard. Couple of sentences to say. I like Spotify, Shopify. We always get the two confused, but yeah, hopefully that was clear. So just something again for people to keep their eye on, but certainly audio marketing is definitely here to stay. We can see the trends already showing that in 2022.
The final element I want to discuss, following on from obviously audio, is content and the role content has played specifically in 2021 from an SEO perspective. I discussed this as part of my digital trends. And the key thing for me is getting over across to our listeners is that, it's quality over quantity. So making sure that you focus your content on terms of, answering questions your customers have, providing them information and educational content that helps them learn more about particular product or services. But if you're like in e-commerce, giving them top tips of what to do and how to utilize your products in a particular way. What we started doing as an agency, as a strategy last year, is we went from weekly blogs to bi-weekly, and we increased the level of content we put into our blogs because it performed better. It got more people to our site. It helped us rank better for particular keywords. And when you've got longer form content, you're able to provide more context around the discussion, the subject matter in which you're doing that blog with. What we also will see a key trend of is converting that into vlogs, and the role that video and SEO video will play as part of your strategy in 2022. So, regurgitate that content, make a short video about it, and you can use that to actually drive people to the actual physical written content on your website, which would be a good strategy in place. So content is king. Google continues to update its algorithms to focus on high quality content. Consider if someone goes into your website and you have a 2-3 minute blog that they're reading, that's engagement time on your website. But therefore, you have to make sure that your website is technically sound, to make sure that they have a good user experience on website, which is what Google is focusing on as part of its updates, but also ensure that, you've got a good internal link building process. So if they've gone on to look at, for example, if they've gone to an SEO blog on our website, we want to give them relevant other element SEO blogs, references, internal links that might help and improve their education and what they're looking for before they make that final decision.
Yeah. I think that's a really key point, and hopefully a great takeaway that people could start implementing into their marketing strategies for 2022. I also did talk about, the rise of social commerce and TikTok versus Reels, but I think we covered off enough of those in the actual session at the time. So if you do want to know more about that, please do go back and listen to the trends session in full that both Manni and I recorded. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. 2022 is here now. We've started. Have you got off to a roaring start? Have you started implementing any of the things we've discussed? Have you seen that so far as a trend in 2022? If you have, please do come and reach out to us, engage with us on social media, visit the Bobble Pod website, or leave a comment or review on the podcast wherever you are listening to it or watching it. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you for tuning in to our trends. And if you listen out next month, we're going to be starting our series on social media. So thank you for listening.
Thanks.